Welcome, everyone, to the third weekly edition of the Big Ten Roundup version of the Assembly Call. I'm Michael Dugan. Over there is Josh Eastern. Josh, how are you tonight?
I'm pretty good. Ready to get this thing going. Big weekend of IU hoops coming up.
Yeah, this is a huge weekend, and this is the turning point of the season. Statistically, it's the midway through the Big Ten, but also the Hoosiers are in need of a win after that loss in Madison the other night. Now, good news for them is on Saturday they've got far from spectacular Minnesota, but then later next week we've got to travel into Ann Arbor and take on the Wolverines. We're going to get to those in that order starting right about now. We're going to talk Minnesota versus Indiana in Assembly Hall on Saturday afternoon. Josh has 2 points. Josh has 1 point for that. I've got two, so I'll lead us off. And the first key for this game is they just have to score. Indiana just has to score. It's something that they know how to do, and they do it very well. They have all season. I don't need to sit here and say that, so this will go pretty quickly. They need to score. Yogi Ferrell's got to have – he doesn't even need to have the game that he just had in Madison, but he's just got to be capable. He's got to get to the hoop, hit a couple open threes, spread the ball around, maybe get Thomas Bryant back into it because he got beat up the other night in the second half. Well, and almost everyone that Wisconsin sent down low to him with the ball, whether that be Nigel Hayes or someone else, he just got handled, and there was nothing really great about his performance in the final 20 minutes and overtime. So I think they need to score through everyone. So whether that be, like I said, Yogi or Thomas Bryant, maybe even OG can step up a little bit. Troy Williams, Robert Johnson, all those guys. Everyone needs to step up. Everyone needs to score because Minnesota's not that good. They don't play great defense. They just lost to Illinois at home. They don't have enough weapons on offense to keep up in this game. So if Indiana can score and get everyone involved early, they'll have this one in the bag. I'm certain.
Yeah, I mean, scoring is a big part of this offense as we've seen this entire season. I mean, that's kind of how this team is built. They're a great scoring team, even without James Blackman Jr. I mean, that's just a little bit off. But my main key for this one is just put them away early. Leave no doubt in this game. Coming off a tough loss on the road in overtime where people were sick, it just wasn't the best game the Hoosiers have played all season. Come into this game, get some confidence heading into Ann Arbor, which is going to be one of the biggest games of the whole season. This could set the tone for the rest of the season. Are the Hoosiers going to be up towards the top of the Big Ten, or will they start to fall a little bit after this really good start with kind of a backloaded schedule? And this is a game under no circumstances which you can lose. I think that's kind of evident from seeing Minnesota at the very bottom, Indiana second in the Big Ten right now. But at the same time, you don't want to completely overlook Minnesota and move on to Michigan, because if you overlook Minnesota, I mean, if they're hanging around, I mean, this team really has nothing to lose at this point in the season. They haven't won a game. They're just going to go out there playing free basketball. So putting them away early, getting some confidence, going to Michigan, get a win there. So it's just really about this weekend, getting it back together, get the bench involved, get all the pieces back together that they were before Wisconsin, and then move ahead to Michigan on Tuesday.
Yeah, and then also branching off my first point, obviously, I said they have to score, but they have to start hot. They have to use that home court advantage behind 17,000 strong and start hot in this game, because in each home win that Indiana's had, none of them have been really that close, and they've started hot in all of them. Like last weekend against Northwestern, they scored the first 13 points. Chris Collins had to take a couple timeouts just to get his guys, settled down. But by then, the game was already over. It was 13 points, and it never got back within, 6 or 7. So they play well enough at home where this shouldn't be an issue, but that doesn't mean that you should take it for granted. Obviously, you need to go in there with the mentality that, look, this is a Big Ten game. Obviously, Minnesota's going to bring it. It's not like they're from the Missouri Valley or, the SWAC or something like that, but these guys bring it. This is the Big Ten. Anything could happen on any given night. I feel like I say that every week, but it's true. So, they've got to bring it, and they have to start hot. Like I said, whenever they start hot, they run away with it, especially at home. So they need to make sure they jump out to a lead and come ready to play. So that's pretty much what they need from Minnesota. We covered it all pretty much there. If they can just do the basics and play their game, they'll get that win. That's not a secret to anyone. However, Michigan's a different story. And they lack a lot of scoring options without Karis LeVert. So, Josh, what do you have for that for the Wolverines on Tuesday?
My biggest thing is somebody needs to help Yogi Ferrell. I mean, he just did it all by himself on Tuesday against Wisconsin, and on the road in the Big Ten where it's really tough to get a win. as we just saw. And as we saw at Minnesota, Indiana didn't play their best game there. It needs to be a whole team game against Michigan. You cannot have Yogi Ferrell. I mean, it's nice to have him score 30 points, but if he's the only one scoring, that's an issue. And then you had Thomas Bryant fouling out on Tuesday against Wisconsin. You need to have these players in the game playing their best, helping and complementing Yogi Ferrell. It's fine if Yogi Ferrell is the vocal point of the offense. It's probably okay for Indiana, but you need a little bit of help, some other scoring options instead of Yogi Ferrell. And one way they could do that is getting the bench involved. Indiana did not score well off the bench the other night. OG Anunoby struggled from the field. Max Bielfeldt didn't have his best game. So getting these guys involved early will help Indiana when it comes down to the last couple minutes. It'll probably be a very close game. So giving Yogi Ferrell a couple breaks too, because whenever he was out of the game, Indiana really struggled for whatever they were doing. Wisconsin was having much success without Yogi Ferrell on the floor. So when he isn't on the floor, having scoring options instead of Ferrell, you've got to help Yogi Ferrell out.
Yeah, he can't do it all, and he almost had to do it all in Madison. So we'll look to see if that will happen, see if they can spread it out and get some more love from everyone else offensively. But to me, I've got 2 words for Tom Crean and the Hoosiers, and those 2 words are Caris LeVert. We don't know when he's coming back. John Beilein and the Wolverines have openly said that they have a target date for him to come back, but they will not specify with the media. Could that be a home return against Indiana? It could be. We don't know. We won't know until that day comes, and that day is not too far away. So if I'm Indiana right now, I'm preparing as if Caris LeVert is going to play, because when he steps on the court, he immediately brings a threat that the Wolverines possess that really can't be matched by almost anyone in the entire conference, with exception to maybe Denzel Valentine for Michigan State. This guy can do it all. He's lanky. He's got a great jump shot. He can create his own shot. He's crafty in the paint. He's got great hands. He's an all-around player and an NBA prospect who's missed his past 6 games, I think, since spraining his ankle the day before New Year's. But you know he'll be excited to come back. However, we don't know if he's coming back. So if he doesn't come back, the Hoosiers need to focus on guard Derek Walton. Now, this kid has double-digit points in his last 6 games without Caris LeVert, including 2 double-doubles in points and rebounds. He's a 6'1" guard who has 2 double-doubles in the last 6 games. He's gotten 10 and 12 rebounds against, I believe, Nebraska and Maryland, but I'm not sure. Don't write me down on that. This is a 6'1" guard doing that. So you have to imagine he's going to be on Yogi Ferrell without Caris LeVert on the floor. He scored, like I said, double-digit points in his last 6 games. He's playing 37 minutes over those 6 games on average. This guy's not really resting. You know, he's staying on the floor. He's making plays happen. He's creating plays. He's scoring. He's crashing the boards. He's doing it all, and he's 6'1". I mean, this guy can run around almost anyone on the Hoosier team, and Yogi has to stick him for almost 40 full minutes, which is something that he really hasn't had to do at the point guard position all year, with maybe exception to Grayson Allen at Duke. So this is going to be a huge challenge for Yogi, and we'll see how he reacts to facing a guy like Walton, who can crash the boards and score and not really need a breather while doing it.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully Yogi doesn't have to be the only one on offense doing something and have to check Derek Walton on defense, because that'd be a really tough task, especially if the Hoosiers were going like they were on Tuesday. And like they were on Tuesday on the road, for my last key, you cannot turn the ball over. They turned over 19 times again against the Badgers on Tuesday. You're going into another tough road arena on Tuesday, and you cannot turn the ball over. That's been the Hoosiers' Achilles heel kind of all season. They've definitely gotten better at it, but it showed again on Tuesday at Wisconsin. You cannot have people turning the ball over and expect to win on the road, especially against Michigan, who is a much better team than Wisconsin, probably one of the best teams Indiana has faced or will face so far this season. And if they're turning the ball over left and right, they're not going to have success. You can mark my word for that one.
I'll write you down for that one, and we'll see how that goes. But obviously this game is going to be much more competitive that we can see than the Minnesota game on Saturday. We hope for them to be both wins, but obviously we'll have to see. That Michigan game is going to be a real challenge. So we'll start with our picks to clicks for Minnesota, and then we'll discuss the Michigan one. My pick to click for Minnesota is OG Anunoby. To me, this guy's on the verge of a breakout performance. He's a true freshman, and the last couple games he's played sensational. I mean, he hasn't played a ton, But the times he's been in, he's been blocking shots. He's been an absolute beast in the paint, and he's been creating his own shot offensively. He's been crashing the boards, too. I mean, this guy's been all over the place. Now, I won't go as far as to say that this guy's got potential to break through like Victor Oladipo did, because that is a high, high praise for a player. And this kid still, doesn't play more than 20 minutes a game, but it's way too early. But from what I've seen so far, it looks like he could be on the verge of something very, very special. Again, I'm not going as far as to say he could be the next Victor Oladipo in terms of the high potential and high ceiling. However, don't be surprised if this kid breaks out at some point this year and soars into a new echelon of his game next season, because this guy is unbelievable. And it all starts, to me, with this game in Minnesota, because we're anticipating a not-so-competitive game. If that's the case, he's going to be on the floor a lot. That's going to give him a chance to make something happen before the game's completely out of reach. So I think that if he can do that, not only will it help the Hoosiers win, but it can really give him some confidence going forward, because he's going to need to be an X factor if these guys are in foul trouble, because they're already short James Blackman in the backcourt. So we'll see if he can step up and maybe make a couple plays. But I think that he is on the verge of something special, more than just this game coming up.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Crean after the game against Northwestern praised OG Anunoby to no end. Basically, he was saying we're treating him like a upperclassman, and he said that's the highest praise he can give OG Anunoby just as a freshman. But my pick to click in this game is going to be Robert Johnson. He has been a little bit inconsistent. I mean, he's had his shot in some games, and he comes back the next game, hasn't really been there for him. And I think this is a game where it's probably going to be a very open game. Indiana shouldn't have too many issues. So Robert Johnson will have his chance. Hopefully Yogi Ferrell can kind of be in a more distributive role in this game and maybe not take all the offense for himself. Well, that'd be okay. But maybe Robert Johnson can be the beneficiary of a couple Yogi Ferrell assists, just get back in the rhythm of the game, have a double-digit scoring output, and then move ahead to Michigan, and hopefully that just carries out throughout the season. Maybe this can be a launching point of the season for Robert Johnson. And also, I forgot to mention the KenPom numbers for these two games. Right now, Minnesota, there's a 95% chance for Indiana to win. He has the score at 84-65. And then at Michigan, he has Michigan beating Indiana, with Indiana just having a 44% chance to win, losing 76-74. So kind of a blowout looking forward, or a blowout in the forecast for Saturday. And then Tuesday is Indiana's first time being an underdog all season. So we'll see how that affects what happens in those two games.
And what did you say the KenPom prediction was for that Michigan game? 76-74?
Yeah, 76-74, 44% chance to win for Indiana.
So 76 points for Michigan is more than Indiana would like to see. Obviously, they can score, but defensively, that's a lot of points they let up. Who's going to be the X factor for that? To me, my pick to click, Robert Johnson. Why? Because to me, he's been standing out defensively really since James Blackman Jr. went down. He stuck, as I thought would happen, Bryant McIntosh last weekend better than I've seen anyone guard Bryant McIntosh in his 2 years of starting at Northwestern. Now, granted, it's Bryant McIntosh. We're not talking about, Aaron Kraft back when he played for Ohio State or Marcus Page for North Carolina. It's Bryant McIntosh, so it's nothing that special. But his numbers and performance that game, and I was watching that matchup very closely, not only for the outcome of that game, but for how Robert Johnson would set a foundation and make his identity known as a great defender for the rest of the season. And he was unbelievable. I mean, the second McIntosh crossed half court, Johnson didn't give him more than 2 feet of space, and he couldn't drive. It was something I've never seen been done before, because McIntosh is very, very capable with the ball, and he can make plays. But I was blown away because, like I said, no one's been able to do that against McIntosh, even as a freshman. Much praise to Robert Johnson. He was fantastic, and to me, he's the X factor going forward for IU just because of his defensive ability. If Karis LeVert comes back, I wouldn't be surprised if Robert Johnson has to guard him. Granted, LeVert's 6'7", that'll be a tall task for Robert Johnson. But if he comes back, Rojo's going to have his hands full, no doubt about that. And even if he doesn't, whoever he has to guard, whether that be Derek Walton, which it could be, he's very important, and he has to make stops and prevent Michigan from creating offensive chances. Because if they score 77 points, I don't know if Indiana's going to win this game. And it starts with Robert Johnson because, like I said, he's their team's best defender right now along the perimeter. Yogi Ferrell played all right against Trey Demps last weekend, but Robert Johnson was sensational. And if he continues that trend, he's going to put Indiana in a position to score after each possession. And if they can do that, it's hard for them to lose because we all know they can score.
Yeah, so I mean, I have Robert Johnson Saturday. You got Robert Johnson Tuesday. So hopefully one of us is right in our pick to click for this next week. But my pick to click for Tuesday at Michigan is Max Bielfeldt. This is a homecoming game for him. He'll probably have a chip on his shoulder. He knows everything about that program. He was there for 4 years. I mean, this is a game where he can go out and just kind of show what he is now. He's kind of a changed player. He didn't really have too much of an outside shot at Michigan, but he worked on that over the summer. He's kind of evolved as a player a little bit. He's a fifth-year senior. He's come to Indiana from Michigan as one of those graduate transfers. And this is a game where he will have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I'm sure he left there in fine hands and all that. But this is a game where he can go back there and kind of stick it to Michigan just a little bit. But it'll be interesting, especially for Bielfeldt, to see what the emotions he will have in that game, because he could either just be like, oh, I wish I would have stayed at Michigan or so be it. But he did come to Indiana, and transferring within the conference is kind of a tough thing. Most times teams don't let that happen, but because he was a graduate transfer, that could happen. So this will be a fun game, definitely, for Max Bielfeldt on Tuesday.
That's right. That's me making his return to Ann Arbor. Completely forgot about that. Great to mention that, because that will be a storyline going forward. That always is with 20, 22-year-old kids going back to where they, where their roots are, more or less. But now it's where it gets interesting, Josh. So I hope you're ready for this, because we have to make our picks. So I'm assuming for the Minnesota game that you have Indiana, as I do. Am I correct?
Yes, definitely correct in that one.
Okay, now is where we have some fun, and now is where we start the discussion, because this Michigan game is at the flip of a coin. So I have to ask you, Josh, who wins in Ann Arbor on Tuesday?
I've been going back and forth with this one. This morning I was thinking IU, but then you were mentioning Karis LeVert. If he comes back, I think Indiana will get the win regardless of Karis LeVert being there or not. I'm sure there's a little bit of bias in that, but I do think Indiana, they went on the road last week, lost a tough game. They're going to come back a week later, and I think they're going to bounce back. They played one game on the road. It was a tough road game. Didn't go the way they wanted to go with the loss, but I think they're going to bounce back. Big game from Max Bielfeldt, who was my pick to click, but I think Yogi Ferrell is going to lead this team once again. He's been the leader all year. This is going to be one of the toughest road games of the year. They got Michigan State coming up, and they also have to go to Iowa. Those are some also tough road games. And this is kind of the start of the stretch of tough games. I mean, you got Michigan next Tuesday, and then you go on the road to Penn State. You come back for Iowa, and then you got Michigan State. So right now, this is a big point in the season where things could go up or things could could go down pretty quickly. I think they're going to start off with a win in Ann Arbor on Tuesday. What do you got?
Well, you make an interesting point by saying that this is where the season kind of takes off from here, and you're not wrong. Indiana's got a lot of marquee opponents left on their schedule, and as I coined last week, they Notre Damed their schedule, and they have all their tough opponents in the end. However, Michigan is no cupcake. Michigan is no cupcake, and just because that this is their last kind of like tier 2, 2.5 team before they play the Purdue's, Iowa's, and Michigan State's and Maryland's of the Big Ten, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to win. I think if Karis LeVert comes back, it's the Michigan win regardless, because, like I said, Robert Johnson stuck Bryant McIntosh like I've never seen before. But, again, it's Bryant McIntosh. He's not Karis LeVert. He doesn't have an NBA future in the foreseeable couple years. But even without Karis LeVert, the road games, these road trap games for Indiana have been the kryptonite in the past couple years. I mean, you'd think we'd learn at some point, but apparently we keep getting hopeful and all that stuff. But this is an absolute trap game, and those prove to be the worst for teams like Indiana, because they play so well at home that sometimes when they go into these hostile environments like the Kohl Center and like up in Ann Arbor, it's tough for them, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's natural to struggle like that, but it's been such a common theme, and it's a tough game too. Michigan is good, and they're very well coached. John Beilein's a heck of a coach, and Derek Walton can score, and even if Karis LeVert comes back, that adds a whole new dimension for Michigan that Indiana doesn't really have on tape against a Big Ten opponent. I mean, he got hurt against Illinois. Illinois is terrible, and that's their only Big Ten game that they've played with Karis LeVert. Michigan has. So I like Michigan in this one. I don't like Michigan in this one. I think they're going to win. I hope Indiana wins. Don't get me wrong, but I think Michigan comes out with the win here. It's tough. After what I saw on the road last week, I haven't seen anything from them away from home this season that has given me reason to believe that something will change in such a short period of time. We saw them get pasted at Duke. They lost 2 of 3 in Maui against teams that they should have pummeled, to be honest with you, and they just lost in Wisconsin. So what have they done on the road to prove that they're capable of bouncing back like that? I mean, this could be a game that proves me wrong, and then I'll have to change my viewpoint and argument for the future road games. But up at this point right now, Indiana hasn't proven to me that they can play with the big dogs on the road. Even the middle dogs like Wake Forest and UNLV in neutral sites, they can't hang with Duke on the road. They couldn't really play with Wisconsin. They got outplayed. Nigel Hayes just took over that game whenever he wanted to. And if Karis LeVert comes back, I think he could do the exact same thing. And even if he doesn't, it could be the Derek Walton show against Yogi Ferrell. I don't know what's going to happen there with LeVert. We'll find out then. But regardless of if he's on the floor or not playing, I still will take Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, you make all solid points there. I mean, playing on the road is just not the same as playing at home. I mean, you have to travel, you got the crowd on your back the entire time. I mean, it's just not the same as playing at home. And in the Big Ten with these unique environments, it's so difficult to bring your game bring it up to Ann Arbor, bring it over to Madison or Purdue or wherever you are playing. It's just not the same as playing at home. Playing on the road is tough. Teams are definitely play different games when they're not at home. And if you can bring your game on the road and implement it in a way that suits your game on the road, you'll have success. So Indiana, that's shooting the basketball. If they can shoot the ball well and not turn it over, they'll have success. If they don't do that, though, and they do turn the ball over and they aren't hitting their shot, that's where trouble lies, and that's what teams struggle to do so much, is they can't bring their game on the road, and that's what hurts teams most often.
Exactly, and we'll look for that on Tuesday, and we'll see how they respond on Saturday. If they can play the best defensive game that they've played and just come out and be completely merciless and just try and absolutely pummel and step on the throats of Minnesota, that may start to change how I feel about that game on Tuesday. But then again, it's at home. So, we'll see. If they somehow convince me by a 105-52 victory, then I will come up and say, all right, I changed my mind. They're trying to send a message. Clearly, they were watching the assembly call at 8:54 p.m. This lovely Thursday, and they're trying to send me a message never to bet against them again, and they'll win out. Maybe I'm dreaming, but it's not out of the question. But, in all seriousness, it's a tough game. And on the road in the Big Ten's never easy. I mean, they struggled at Nebraska and Minnesota earlier in the year. So it's never easy on the road, especially when you have to go into an environment like Michigan. With Bielefeld returning, who knows how they'll treat him. And then Karis LeVert might be coming back too for Michigan. A lot of storylines going on there. And I can't wait to break that down next week. Regardless of what happens, hopefully it's a Hoosier victory. But, we'll see. But I just want to warn everyone that this game, I foresee a loss. I see it coming. I'm not confident because usually I have the kiss of death pick, but we'll see what happens there. And just to update people, Josh and I are both 4-0 on the year when we do this show in our Indiana picks in the Big Ten. It's only been 4 games and the opponents haven't been that great. It amps up now. Now is where our real colors will show as analysts and how good we really are, how smart we really are. But just to let you all know that we will be keeping track of that, and one of us will be alone in first place come Tuesday around 11:30 at night after that game wraps up. I can't wait to find out who it is, Josh. I hope it's you, because if it's you, that means Indiana wins, but we will see. We will see. And right now we got to continue to talk about the Big Ten and winning and losing. As you all know, we do our big games of the week in the Big Ten every week. However, our big game for this week happens to be almost over, and that's Iowa at Maryland. But luckily for you, we're very up to date on things, and we're going to update you on what's going on. And with just over 30 seconds left in the second half, Maryland is holding on to a 68-62 lead over number 3 Iowa at home. This is Iowa's first huge test of the year, travel to number 8 Maryland. And Jared Utoff right now for Iowa is absolutely terrible shooting. He's got 9 points. 5 of those are from the free throw line. He's 2 of 13 from the field. He's crashed the boards. He's got 10 boards, but that's just a quick update from College Park. It looks like Iowa, pending a miracle comeback, will go down, and then Indiana will be back up, tied for first place with the Hawkeyes, and there's now under 30 seconds left. You'd have to imagine Maryland is going to hold on there. So, Josh, obviously we can't make picks for this game because I think we would both pick Maryland if we're both, all there mentally, given they have a 6-point lead with just over 20 seconds to go. Now, do you have another game this weekend that you'd like to talk about, other than your upset pick, but your big matchup that we can discuss?
I mean, this is kind of a weaker weekend. There's not too many marquee games with ranked opponents, but one game that kind of catches my eye is Nebraska at Purdue on Saturday afternoon. That's kind of an interesting game. Nebraska's going back on the road where they just beat Michigan State a week ago, and I think they could turn some heads if they give Purdue a run for their money. They did lose to Michigan at home on Saturday, but this is a game where they can kind of prove those doubters wrong. They can keep it close. Purdue is definitely a tough place to play, as we were talking about all these tough road places to play. Purdue is a very tough place to play, but I think Nebraska, using some of that momentum that they got from their win on the road against Michigan State, maybe they can pull some strings against Purdue. Purdue only beat Minnesota by, I believe, 4 points last night, so this could be an interesting trap game for the Boilermakers. Well, Nebraska is going in there looking to get a win because they just fell off a little bit after that loss to Michigan. So maybe they can work their way back up in the Big Ten rankings with a win at Purdue. So we'll see what happens there. What is your game of the week?
I don't know. It's tough because I was looking at that one, and then I said, Nebraska, their momentum from Michigan State kind of got killed when they played Michigan. And I think Purdue just outmatches them everywhere, so I don't really have anything to say about that. However, Maryland coming off what looks like it's going to be a big win over Iowa, and we'll wait till that one's official, which there's just under 20 seconds left, and Maryland holds a 9-point lead. But, Maryland travels to Ohio State on Sunday. And if there's something I love in Big Ten basketball other than the Hoosiers, it's Ohio State's home games on Sunday mornings. I feel like every single time it's something exciting. I don't know what it is or why Ohio State always gets them.
Seconded.
Absolutely. How can you disagree? I don't know why Ohio State always gets these Sunday morning games. Me back home in Chicago, it tips off at sometimes 10:30, 11 a.m. So I'm rolling out of bed and watching Ohio State play someone, which is big-time basketball. And this weekend they got Maryland. Crazy stuff happens on these Sunday morning Ohio State games. Go check the internet. Go check ESPN. Check anything. Whenever Ohio State has a Sunday game, Sunday morning, afternoon game, depending on where you live in the United States or abroad, it's a big-time game, and it's always exciting, and I can't wait. And Maryland travels there on Sunday. However, I think Maryland wins. Now, sorry to tease you into that, but, like I said, Ohio State's got it. And, they beat Kentucky earlier this year, and they're kind of flying under the radar. Without D'Angelo Russell and all those guys, they don't really have a lot of weapons. And statistically, they're not that great, but they've shown this season that they can, fight for wins and beat some big dogs. Like I said, they beat Kentucky. But Maryland's going to go in there, and everyone's going to be like, okay, trap game. They're coming off a huge win. And then I think Maryland can walk in there, get a win by just a couple points. It won't be ugly. It'll be close. It always is in Columbus on Sunday mornings. And I think they sneak out of there with a hard-fought victory. And then I think that they can soar and perhaps win the Big Ten in the regular season, because this Iowa game, once this goes final, which it's about to, they will be sitting pretty with just 2 losses in the Big Ten. They're only 1 game behind Iowa and Indiana, and they hold that tiebreaker over Iowa, and they play Indiana last game of the regular season. That could dictate who wins the Big Ten and seeding in the Big Ten tournament, and obviously help their tournament resume. Now, this game is going to matter a lot in terms of the trajectory of the Big Ten season. Ohio State could turn their season around with a win. Maryland could solidify themselves as a potential number 1 seed. It's going to be a great game. If you love Big Ten basketball like Josh and I do, I assume you do, watch this game, because it's going to be great. Sunday morning, you don't have anything to do. Turn it on. I guarantee you it'll be a good time. And Maryland's going to win, and they could go on a complete tear for most of the season that remains.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching this game earlier against Iowa, which Maryland is up now 6 with just 11 seconds left, so that one basically over. But Maryland has the highest ceiling of any team in the country, in my opinion. They have so many playmakers. They got Suleiman, they got Trimble, they got Stone, they got Carter. I mean, you just have so many good playmakers on this team. Now, whether they will reach that ceiling, who knows? But this team is built to go to a Final Four, built to win a Big Ten championship. And if they get things to go in the right direction, I think they can go on a tear. After that loss at Michigan State, maybe they have a little bit of chip on their shoulder now to win out the rest of the regular season. Now they got to come to Assembly Hall on the last day of the regular season. That could be a trap game for them. That could also be a big-time game for the Big Ten regular season championship, depending on how Indiana is. But I'm with you with that Sunday game on CBS. I mean, they're always on TV then, and it's always fun to watch. You were talking about rolling out of bed at like 11. I'm rolling out of bed at 9. I got to set an alarm to get up for those games on the West Coast. But no, those are always fun to watch, and they always seem to play well in those games for some reason. I'm not sure what it is, but it's just they just seem to rally the troops no matter how good or how bad they are. They always seem to play well in those games, and I think they could give Maryland a run for their money. I don't know if they'll win that game, but I think Maryland is just a great team. But I do think it'll be a close game like you were talking about.
I certainly hope so, and I certainly think so. That's going to be great TV. And just to update you all, that game did just go final. Maryland 74, Iowa 68. So Indiana back atop the Big Ten, tied with Iowa. 7-1 are the Hawkeyes. Indiana also sharing that one in the loss column. And what strikes me about this game real quickly is the balance. Melo Trimble had 11 points, Diamond Stone with 9, Suleiman 17, Jake Lehman with 11, Robert Carter with 17. Maryland can swing the ball around, and anyone in their starting lineup can score, and this is why they're dangerous going forward. So we'll talk about that in a couple weeks when they come to Bloomington. But just as a little footnote to everyone listening, Maryland's good. So take note of them and place your bets now if you have to. If it's Indiana, Maryland, doesn't matter to me. Just make the smart pick. I mean, obviously the Cream and Crimson's the smarter pick, but, if you want to, go your separate ways and pick Maryland, also a smart choice. Now we're talking upsets, and I'm not going to put any more suspense on mine because it just tipped off, and I'd like to make a PSA before I go out and say this. Now, I understand that the responsibility as host of this weekly show is to talk positive about Indiana and focus Indiana, and I'm all for that. Trust me, that's what we do. However, the reason that I'm on the hot seat right now is my upset pick is Northwestern. And I already picked them, and I said to watch out for them to keep it close against Indiana. They play Michigan State right now. It just tipped off over on ESPN. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that if Northwestern does not win this game, I, Michael Dugan, impose a personal suspension on Northwestern basketball for the next 2 to 3 shows. I will not say a word. You will not hear of them. Josh clapping on the other end. You will not hear of them. I will not say a word. They will not be my upset pick. They won't be in the discussion because I know you're probably tired of hearing about them already. But I'm telling you, I'm confident, and I know I say this a lot, but I am confident that they can defend their home court against Michigan State right now on ESPN. Go check it out. And they can avenge that absolutely dismal performance that they had in Bloomington last weekend. I think they get it done. This is their statement win. This team knows how to respond. They need a big-time win now if they want any chance of having any relevant postseason berths. They need it now. They will get it now. And by the time we go to bed tonight, Northwestern will have that signature win, and I will need not be suspended from talking about Wildcat basketball. Josh, your pick.
I mean, that's a very bold prediction. I mean, I was looking at the Big Ten schedule. There aren't too many ranked teams going against unranked teams. I mean, you have Northwestern. Actually, after this, they go to Iowa this weekend. That could be an interesting one. I'm not going to pick Northwestern in that. I'm sorry. But, I mean, I was looking at some other ones. I mean, Rutgers plays Michigan State, but no, I'm not. There's no way I'm picking Rutgers, especially against Michigan State on the road. I mean, I was leaning towards picking Ohio State over Maryland, and I think that could be a good upset. But, I mean, I just don't see very many upsets happening this week. I just think Maryland's too good. They're not going to fall. Iowa just lost at Maryland. They're not going to lose 2 in a row, especially to Northwestern. And Michigan State's definitely not going to lose to Rutgers. So I'm sorry to be a little bit lame, but I don't really have an upset this week. I don't see any upsets happening. It's just kind of a ho-hum weekend in the Big Ten. Now, there are some good games with unranked teams like Illinois going against Wisconsin. That could be an interesting game to see how they stop Nigel Hayes. But there isn't too much on the schedule that intrigues me this week. I mean, you got Indiana, Minnesota. That's kind of another ho-hum game. But next week, it's Indiana, Michigan. That's the premier game on the schedule next weekend, or before next Thursday, I believe. So I'm sorry to say I don't have any upsets this week, but I still say tune in because there will be some competitive basketball games, and it is the Big Ten. So I guess anything can happen. Like you always say, Michael, anything can happen in the Big Ten. But this week, I just don't really see any upsets happening.
So you don't see – we talked about how awesome it is to have Columbus basketball on Sunday mornings. You don't see Ohio State taking out Maryland?
I just don't. I think Maryland, they just beat Iowa. They're going to start rolling, I think. I mean, I don't see that. I mean, that's a tough place to play. Don't get me wrong, especially on Sunday mornings with that CBS and all that. But I just don't see it in the cards. It's just a little too tough to be against Maryland at this point in the season.
Okay, fair enough. And I agree with you that Maryland will keep the ball rolling. Now, we've got about 2 minutes till we sign off, and it is not too late to jump on the Northwestern over Michigan State bandwagon. So if any time in the next 2 minutes you want to jump on, maybe in your closing remarks, let me know. I won't hold it against you. I think it's a very smart pick. But, if you change your mind on that or Maryland and Columbus, just let me know because, I'm keeping track of these upset picks. If you don't have one, obviously playing it safe. But if you change your mind, I'm always here. You can let me know.
I think I changed my mind more on Maryland over losing to Ohio State than Michigan State losing to Northwestern. I'm sorry about that, but
no, fair enough. No hard feelings. I mean, if I didn't grow up just north of Evanston, I probably would have said the same thing to you. But obviously, that Maryland-Ohio State game, I don't think we can stress this enough. That's going to be a great game. And Maryland very well could squeeze. And even if they win it close, that's still a good win because it's tough to go into Columbus and get a win, no matter how good they are, because they're always going to be at least competitive. So I've got my eye on that one. That's going to be a great game. That's going to be must-watch TV on a Sunday without real competitive football for the first time since August.
What, the Pro Bowl isn't competitive?
Not anymore. Oh, come on now. Don't even give me that.
Sorry. Russell Wilson was the top pick, so I mean,
you got to give him a little shout-out. Understood. But, as we were saying, Maryland-Ohio State Sunday morning. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. That's good. That's good Big Ten basketball. Josh, you have any closing remarks?
I mean, it's the Big Ten. Anything can happen. Watch college basketball this weekend. There's some good games outside the Big Ten too. Kentucky and Kansas, two of the winningest programs in college basketball history, and then you got Oklahoma and LSU, two of the best players in the country. Ben Simmons against Buddy Hield. That'll be must-watch TV also. But other than that, watch Indiana, Minnesota, and Michael and I will have the post-game show on Saturday evening, afternoon. I think it's a 2:15 Eastern tip. So wherever you are, tune in online right after the game. So we'll be on the air probably around 4:15-ish. Definitely tune in for that. And besides that, Indiana plays Minnesota, as we were mentioning. It's on BTN, 2:15 Eastern. And then next Tuesday, it's a late tip, 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. So Indiana getting the primetime slot on Tuesday night once again. So I think that'll do it for tonight's show. For Michael Dugan on the other end, I'm Josh Easton. We'll see you for the post-game show on Saturday after Indiana hopefully beats Minnesota. Go Hoosiers, everybody.